Hi, and welcome to my weight journey. My name is Yvette, and I'll be sharing my weight loss journey with all of you. I've gained a good amount of weight over the past few years, and to lose that weight, I've started and stopped different diets without much success. And now I have finally found a way of eating that I know I like. I think I'll be able to stick with this program, and I know it's healthy, which is also great. I plan on documenting my weight loss and sharing that with all of you, as well as sharing things like lessons learned, what's working, maybe what's not working, and different tips and tricks and everything else that I think is informative to bring us all success in our own weight journeys. Now, I've thought about some cool ways that I can document this weight loss to really see my progress. I have a regular type scale that links to an app so I can track my weight, my fat percentage, and a few other variables that way. But I also invested in a special scale that takes a 3D scan of my body from 360 degrees from kind of head to toe, and I'm still playing around with how to use that scale and the app, but so far I've seen it can do some really cool things, like track your measurements, things like your waist, your stomach, your hips and thighs, your arms. It actually tracks 9 key body measurements. You can also see side-by-side comparisons of your body as your weight changes, so you can really easily and visually track your progress. Now, I'm going to share my first scan with you in a second, but another tool that I'm using to track is actually Excel. So Excel spreadsheets are helpful for kind of projecting your weekly weight loss based on potential percentage loss, as well as planning meals and counting macros and calories. I also have a smartwatch, which is great for tracking calories burned. So those are just a few of the primary tools that I'm going to be using to track my journey. As I go along, I may incorporate other tools, and if I do, I'll be sure to let you all know. As of today, I have about 100 pounds to lose to reach my goal weight, which is just over 45 kilograms or just over 7 stone. So it can definitely seem daunting having this much weight to lose, but having different tools, especially technology, to help me along the way, I think it makes it easier and sometimes even fun when you see that 3D image, although I wish it was a smaller 3D image, I have to admit. Let's talk about some facts before we take a look at that first scan. So I just turned 45 years old this year. We're in March of 2020. I'm actually recording this March 7th of 2020, and here's actually a People magazine cover that a magazine that just came out recently. As far as stats, I am 5'2.5", and yes, I always use that half inch because it's mine. Nobody can take it away from me. That 5'2.5" equals about 160 centimeters, and my starting weight is 225, so 225 pounds, which is about 102 kilograms or 16 stone for those in the UK. My goal weight is 123 pounds, which is 55.8 kilograms or 8.8 stone. So again, I'm just over 5'2", so 123 is a good weight for me. I weighed about 123 most of my 30s, and it looked good on me. If I get closer to that weight and I see that I need to adjust that goal a little bit one way or the other, that's fine too. Okay, now let's take a look at my first scan. So I am using the Naked Labs Naked Homebody Scanner 3D Fitness Tracker. So this is a product that I pre-ordered in about 2016 when I was an early adopter, because I thought the technology and the concept was just really cool and advanced. The product launched right around winter of 2018. I received it about a year ago, but I wasn't ready to start my weight journey until now. So I was very excited when I was finally, ready to unbox the scale and start using this technology. So here's my first scan. It's a little bit scary, but let's take a look at the images and then the stats. All right, right, we are opening up the Naked app, and there it is. There's our first scan, our first 3D scan. And you can take a look at this image from 360 degrees. So I am just going to go ahead and do that for you. I'm going to rotate that all around, and you can see your body from all of these different angles and really see almost every square inch that you really want to see for these purposes anyway. So that's it. You can start rotating around and taking a look. And if we look at the top of the screen, as I mentioned, this scan is from March 7th of 2020. And if you look at that little number 3 on the left, that just means that I've actually taken 3 different scans so far. And then once I take the 4th going forward, I can unlock new features, which is the ability to unlock graphs. So you can start seeing, so for example, some of the key measurements and looking at a graphical representation of how you've progressed. So I'm not there yet, but once I take more scans, I'll be able to unlock that feature. So why don't we take a look here under the first tab, which is key stats, and start taking a look at these numbers. So according to the Naked app, my body fat percentage is currently 59.5. Fat mass is 134.1 pounds. Lean mass, 91.2 pounds. And then weight, 225.3. So let's just talk about these numbers for a second, because if you recall, I mentioned besides this Naked scale, I'm also using a regular type scale, and I want to show you because that has an app that goes along with it. So if you look at the top of the screen, you see there's the Naked scale on the right, but on the left, there's that Renpho scale. That's that normal scale that I'm using. And that Renpho scale, if you see that weight at the top, 225.4, if we just do a quick comparison with the Naked app, it's 225.3. So those are pretty accurate. But if you look at that Naked app fat percentage again, it's showing 59.5 right on the left there. When you flip over to the Renpho scale, if you look at that first row of data, that's kind of like across the top there on the white portion of the screen, on the far right it shows body fat, and on the Renpho scale it's 52.4. So that's a percentage difference of about 7% or so. And so right now, I'm not exactly sure how to account for that difference. You know, one thing might be that the Naked scale, I've noticed that when you hop on and hop off, depending on how you position your feet, etc., it does have a tendency to show slightly different numbers. So that might be one way to account for it. You know, as we go along, as we progress and start taking more measurements and comparing these, maybe they'll be more similar in the future. But if they're not, you know, at least we know from a starting point that they're different now. So we'll see what happens with the body fat. But since we're already here, why don't we take a quick look at the Renpho scale app data and see what it shows us. So starting at the top in the larger font, it's the overall body weight, so 225.4. Then under that, we have our weight goal, as I mentioned, 123. And then it asks you for a body fat goal. I just put in 23%, but that can change. Then right underneath that, it shows your weight from the previous day, or your weight from the previous time you took your weight. So from March 6th, it shows you whether or not, you know, I gained or lost weight. And then you see that gray bar that's kind of in the middle, and that's the current weight. So I took this weight on March 7th, 2020 at 9:17 p.m. And I'll just let you know, I normally take my weight first thing in the morning after I've had a chance to use the restroom. But the reason that I'm actually taking my weight for, you know, using both of these apps and both of these technologies, I'm taking it more in the evening, is because the Naked scale tends to work better in dim light, when there's very little light in the room. And so whether that's natural light or kind of overhead light from lamps, and I live in Florida, where it's always very, very sunny. And so I've noticed that when I'm using it, the Naked scale, I'm using it in the evening, I tend to get very crisp images. You know, I've only taken 3 so far, but that's what I've noticed. And so I think I'm going to have a tendency to take these weights more in the evening, unless I can come up with kind of a better way of doing it, so I can take it first thing in the morning. But again, it's a learning process. We'll see how we go. But underneath that gray bar, it starts giving you some data. So starting from the left, again, the weight, 225.4, and then it automatically calculates your BMI for you. So we're working with 39.9 right now. That's very high. And then again, body fat percentage, 52.4. I won't walk through all these data points, but I do want to bring your attention to two of them. The first one being visceral fat. That's that number 21 in red. And that's the fat. And actually, if you click on these, it gives you more information, which again is very informative. This is the fat that accumulates kind of around your organs. It's also that fat right around your midsection. This is the dangerous fat. This is the worst place you can have fat. So the fact that it's 21, it shows they're excessive. This is a number we really want to work on reducing. And right along the bottom, you see it says 52 metabolic age. That's another number that's very important. And so this scale, the analytics, they're using different data points to arrive at this metabolic age. And as I mentioned previously, I am 45 years old. So the fact that they're calculating that my metabolic age is 52, that's definitely concerning, and that's definitely a number that I want to work on to getting it much closer to 45, if not below 45, so that I'm really striving for that optimum health. So, that's just a quick look at the Renpho scale. In the future, I am going to do a comparison, with both of these technologies to see where we are. But I just wanted to bring to your attention the difference there in body fat, and we'll see how that goes in the future. But let's hop back to our Naked Scale app. And we kind of already went through our key stats, and we showed how we can rotate that image. And now let's look at our measurements. So the first measurement you see is your waist to hip ratio, and it's showing 0.87. Next is your shoulders, and now you can see that red bar across the top. It actually uses all the different data points from the front of your body, from the back of your body, to arrive at these measurements. And before I start walking through the rest of these key measurements, it's very, very convenient because every time you get on the scale, it automatically takes these measurements for you. So it's a great way to keep track. So next is your chest, is just a little bit there below the shoulders is where it calculates that. You can see as I spin the image around, it shows you, where it's actually pulling that number from, where it's measuring. And then your arms. So actually your right arm and your left arm. It's actually showing the circumference of both of those arms. Next, the waist. And then a little bit below the waist is that stomach measurement. And again, my stomach is definitely larger than it should be right now. And I definitely want to work on decreasing that size because, again, that's really where you don't want to have body fat. So next are the hips. And then we move on to the thighs. So it takes a measurement of your upper thighs. And after the upper thighs, it also measures your lower thighs. So it gives you both of those measurements. And then the last key measurement are your calves. So there's the right calf and the left calf. And I was interested because I'm actually right-handed, so I'm not surprised that a lot of the measurements on the right-hand side of my body are larger. And there you can see, just visually, it's definitely using the widest part of that lower leg to measure that calf muscle, which I think makes sense. So those are the key body measurements. And again, if you click on any one of these, there's that little message that pops up that says to unlock a graph, take a scan with measurements on 4 separate days. So I haven't done that 4th scan yet, but when I do, every time you click on these key body measurements, you will see a graph, which will allow you to see your progress over time. So just another great way to track. So right along the top here, let's look at that 3rd tab, which is Zoom. So this is a way to really start becoming obsessive and starting to take a much closer look at that scan and taking a closer look at your body overall from, again, every single view. And you can start really zooming in on just key body parts that you want to take a closer look at or focus on. And just to bring something to your attention, do you see on the insides of my arms where it looks a little bit bumpy? That doesn't exist in real life. I think what's happening is that when any part of your body where you're taking the scan shows up in kind of a shadowy part, so the scanner can't really see the insides of my arms, because there's a shadow there as I'm spinning around. You see how it would be a shadow there? It starts to kind of develop these little artifacts, this little noise along your body. And so that's fine. I don't think that's a big deal, because frankly the rest of the image is just so accurate that we'll just go ahead and ignore those little artifacts. So that's the zoom feature. I think this will be very, very handy once that weight starts coming off and you really start to see that muscle definition. I think that would be a great time to then start zooming in on places like your stomach, where you want to see, some definite definition there, in your arms, and seeing that muscle come through, and focus in on areas where you really want to make the most improvement. So I think that'll be very useful then. The next tab across the top is views. So this gives you your 4 primary views, which is to say your view from the front, view from one side, view from the back, and then finally your view from the other side. So it just allows you to kind of walk through those and look at those primary views. And then we've kind of covered all the tabs across the top. If you look along the bottom, we've been under this body, and now we're going to go over to the next feature over, which is compare. And what that will allow us to do in the future, once I've taken kind of a follow-up scan, I can select it here for that after scan, and you can start seeing your progress, whether it's week after week, month after month, or however you'd like to set that up. So you can actually put both images side by side and spin them around and start seeing that progress. So you can see, for example, one side versus the other, and really start seeing that before and after, and taking a look at the progress that you've made. So for me, I probably would focus on that March 7th, 2020 start date, since that would be really my actual before starting point. But that can change, because maybe 3 months from now might want to compare on a month-to-month basis, and that way you can show your progress that way. But again, it's completely up to you. But besides that, visually, being able to compare the two, you can also, it lists out those statistics, so you can start looking at how your body fat has changed, how your fat mass has changed, maybe how your lean mass has gone up, etc. And it starts looking at those key body measurements as well, so you can see how for example, your waist has gone down and your stomach has gone down, etc. And looking at those numbers and those stats, and kind of making those comparisons. So again, I think that's going to be very, very useful to see how the progress that you've made. So that's the compare feature. And then lastly here, when you click on scan, that's just what you'd click on when you were able to start taking that scan, and it pairs your phone with the scale itself, so you can start working on that scan. So that's the last feature there. But that is our overview of our first 3D scan using the Naked Scale. Okay, so that's our first 3D scan. And I'm glad we were able to go through that and kind of see how this is going to work in terms of that scale and that technology. From this point on, I plan on sharing updates with you periodically after certain milestones. I think the first update I'll give is after the first 20 to 25 pounds lost, just because I want to see some good progress and share with you what I'm learning and how it's going. And then after that, we'll see how we go in terms of, which milestones I'll be sharing, maybe every 10 pounds, it depends. But I want to thank you all for watching. And if you're interested in following this weight journey and learning with me, be sure to subscribe. And I look forward to chatting with you all. Take care. Bye-bye.